Lepo vas pozdravljam na gradu Cmurek ob 10. obletnici Muzeja norosti. Posebej pozdravljam naša gosta iz tujine, gospod Ivana Volić in Wanner, ki sta iz mreže Konvencije Faro. Preden bom besedo predala gostoma, bom še nekaj besed v bistvu povedala o tem, zakaj pravzaprav smo danes tukaj. And now I will speak Slovenian, but you have a translation there. Grad Cmurek se uvršča med 5 najstarejših ohranjenih gradov na Slovenskem, takih, ki so še danes tudi nekako polni življenja. Od njegove prve omembe v 12. stoletju je minilo 878 let. Pomembno je tudi dodati, da ni na Tratah samo ta grad, ampak je še grajska kašča iz 17. stoletja, kakšen kilometer bolj, zdi se mi severno, je nekdanja grajska pristava, ki zadnje obdobje rečemo Kapralov grad, prej je bila dvorec Novi Kinek. Na pol poti med dvorcem in gradom je še stara pekarna, ki je vsaj kakšnih 200 let stara, pa Hanzonov oziroma Petkov mlin iz okoli leta 1900, pod gradom je še nekdanja gostilna pri mostu. Torej gre za kulturne spomenike in tudi dediščino, ki so pa žal prazni, brez pravega namena in tudi nekako ogroženi. Žalostna plat tega je, da so bili razen gradu Cmurek vsi ti objekti odprodani, so v zasebni lasti. Čeprav smo že krajani pred 20 leti zasnovali iniciativni odbor za trate in smo opozarjali na ogroženost teh spomenikov, pozivali smo občino in tudi državo, pa takrat ni bilo posluha. Zdaj pred 10 leti smo se pa nekako strnili, zbrali okoli gradu Cmurek, ki je bil še edini v državni lasti. Sami smo izbrali vsebino, ki je pomembna za ta kraj, pa tudi za številne ljudi, ki so tukaj delali, za ljudi, ki so v tem zavodu tudi živeli, za tiste, ki so k njim prihajali na obiske. In prepričani smo od začetka že bili, da je ta vsebina pomembna tudi za vso Slovenijo. Zdaj, mi smo torej začeli z delom pred 10 leti, z velikimi ambicijami, ob tem pa je prišlo do spremembe vodstva v zavodu Hrastovec, ki upravlja s tem gradom, in pripravili so takrat v bistvu načrte za odprodajo gradu in nazadnje še za našo dokončno izselitev, torej potem, ko smo imeli programe že razvite, naj bi se izselili, kar bi tudi pomenilo konec te iniciative oziroma predvsem Muzeja norosti. In ko nam je bilo najtežje in ni bilo mogoče vzpostaviti dialoga, niti z vodstvom Hrastovca, ki je upravljalec, niti z občino Šentilj, niti z Ministrstvom za socialne zadeve, niti z Ministrstvom za kulturo, pa tudi ne s pristojno službo Zavoda za varstvo kulturne dediščine, smo iskali nove vire moči. Takrat so nas podprli številni, z nekaterimi bomo še kasneje na drugi okrogli mizi govorili. Predvsem pa smo iskali še neke dodatne vire in našli smo konvencijo Faro, oziroma konvencijo Sveta Evrope o vrednosti kulturne dediščine za družbo. In danes sem zelo vesela, da ste z nama člana mreže konvencije Faro, ki nam bosta predstavila sploh, kaj ta konvencija pomeni, kako si lahko z njo pomagamo. Predvsem pa ste tukaj tudi zato, da nas poznata, našo iniciativo, kajti nekako si oboji želimo, da bi se lahko tej mreži Muzej norosti tudi pridružil in prihodnje torej iz te mreže črpal dodatna znanja in moči in obratno tudi, da bi v tej mreži pridobili naše izkušnje. Tako da So thank you very much for being with us today. I did a short introduction and now I will ask you to present your part. Zdaj, če kdo rabi pomoč pri prevodu, si bomo pomagali. Drugače pa prvi del bo v angleščini, bo prospe Wanner povedal izkušnjo, prihaja iz Mreža, kjer tudi vodi sam inicijativo Hotel du Nord. in je tudi sicer zelo aktivni član mreže Faro. Za njim gospa Ivana Volić, ki prihaja iz Srbije in bo tudi sama v bistvu predala te izkušnje. Nekako pa smo si zamislili, da boste na kratko predstavili, potem pa lahko še skupaj diskutiramo. So now the floor is really yours.
So, first of all, thank you for the invitation, and sorry because I will speak in English, and so I will try to speak slowly. Also, I can speak very fast, so if I speak too fast, please stop me. I'm here because I'm a member of the Faro Convention Network, but first of all, maybe I will present shortly the Council of Europe. It's the first institution created after the Second World War, and it's about human rights, democracy, and rule of law. So it's 46 states, and they also have a different convention about heritage, but the Faro Convention is the first convention not on how to protect heritage, but why it is important for society, why it is important for democracy, for human rights, but also for local development, for sustainable development, for artistic creation. So it's a framework convention. So generally the states ratified the Faro Convention, but it's the first step after it's all to change the way you work on heritage, and it gives importance to the civil society. So the idea is the cooperation between the institution and civil society. The Council of Europe 10 years ago decided to the creation of the Faro Convention Network to cooperate with initiative which applies the principle of the Faro Convention, sometimes without knowing the Faro Convention. Local institution, local mayor, or like it's a cooperative of inhabitants in the North District of Marseille. So they create a cooperation between this network of local initiative and the Council of Europe on the application and interpretation of the Faro Convention. So I'm a member of the Faro Convention Network. I'm the manager of this cooperative in the North District of Marseille. It's a cooperative of inhabitants. I will shortly present this initiative at the end. I'm also a member of Faro Association because I lived 14 years in Venice, and we have also to deal with huge problematics with the touristification of heritage. So there is still an NGO, and I'm also a member of the university working on cultural rights and human rights. So the Faro Convention Network, we have very different initiatives in Europe. Some like Venice, it's a city, Marseille, it's a metropolitan city, but you have also in rural area, like in Romania, we have dissonant heritage, like Forlì in Italy, we deal with the fascist heritage, but we have also, like in Marseille, we are more with the migrants' heritage, but sometimes like in Pilsen, it was Identity, the program, it was more about the story, about the fabric and so on. So our contexts are different, our profile are different, but we try in common to work on the interpretation and application of the Faro Convention. So I show this image that sometimes people know the European Union, the Council of Europe, it's all Europe. So our methodology in the Faro Convention Network, we try to have a plural approach, but like you are doing here, we work with academics, we have people from the local authorities, civil society, NGO, cooperative, so we try to have this plural approach, but also when we organize meetings, we are always in a research action approach. We are not going to present you a best practice on how to apply the Faro Convention because we change the approach, it's complicated, it's why we are reflecting how we can help the process, but how you can maybe help us in our different contexts to apply the Faro Convention. We say it's an integrated approach because we think that you understand the Faro Convention with your head, but also with your foot. You need to be in the context, you need to be with the local community, you need to understand the place. So it's why for an appreciation visit, we always come to visit the local community. And I have to say that we have different discussions. But for me, it's very impressive to arrive here to see what you are doing since 10 years. It's completely different when you read the documents on your website. The situation is completely different. And we say that we work on a global approach, we work on the human rights priority, but also linked to concrete local priorities. For us, we never separate both. So we can work on gender priority, discrimination priority, but sometimes on local development, very concrete quality of life for the people. For example, in the North District of Marseille, quality of life is a very important challenge. So we never separate both. 10 years ago, the Faro Convention is about a lot of topics, but together we decide 3 main topics for the European networks. The first one is about narratives, because this, in this convention, you say that you have to respect the diversity of interpretation of heritage. Generally, you have one official interpretation from the States, but for example, in my case, when you work in the North District of Marseille, we have different interpretation of the colonial history, about the fabric, about the migration. So how we can respect the different narrative, but in the framework of human rights. So for us, it's a topic. We always have discussion, meeting, and we try. We see here, we talk about the castle. You have the Second World War, you have the medieval period, you have the mental health period. So we see that we have very different narratives on how we manage not to take only one narrative, but to take in consideration all the different narratives, but also the dissonant narratives. So it's our first topic. The second is heritage as a resource. So as a commons, so how we can, group of inhabitants, use this heritage for education, for cultural activity, for economical activity, so not to put heritage in a museum, but to use it as a resource for the local community. It's the same, it's not so easy, because generally all is private, all is public, but in the between it's more complicated to find a way. And the last one is about cooperation. Cooperation between civil society and public institution. In all the context we work, generally we have the civil society has not much trust in the public institution to defend their interests, but public institution trust not the civil society to have the capacity to take care of heritage. So how we try to cooperate together and to find a way, because for us institutions are important, heritage is important, so we want not to act in the margin, but we want to cooperate to act in the framework of public action. So how we find a way, models to cooperate together, it's also our 3 main topics, but after the visit, I understand the same topic you are sharing here, so we organize workshop, cross-visits, each year we have also what we call a Faro research. We invite academics to discuss with us and to work on the ground on one of those 3 topics. So I will go shortly, the Faro criteria. We are not coming here to say it's a Faro approach or not. We are not going to give you like an evaluation. We say we appreciate the situation. We want to know if the civil society is involved or not, if the institution have the traditional approach of heritage or maybe a more open approach of heritage, if you are dealing with human rights priority. So it's more, you say who, how, and what, it's our criteria. But sometimes, for example, I can say in the North District of Marseille, we have very involved on the social challenges, but climate change for us is not a priority for the moment. We have a high problem with poverty, insecurity, so maybe some criteria we are very active on, the other one less active. So it's more an appreciation of the situation. In Marseille, if you come 10 years ago, we were not cooperating with the municipality. Today, the municipality changed 2 years ago. Now, the appreciation, we have a good cooperation with the municipality. So, context change. In the Faro approach, we say Faro Convention process, we have the contexts are different, our actions are different, but we have some elements in common in the way we act. The first one, generally, we have always a common ground. It could be a castle here. In the North District of Marseille, it's more the fabric. It's in your case, it's the neighborhood. So, but we have different interests and different people interests: artists, activists, economic, curators, institutions. So, we have this in common. We work on mutual understanding. We have different point of view, and we try to find a way to understand each other. Maybe we could be in conflict, we don't have the same point of view, but it's why, for example, we organize heritage walk and we give to each part the possibility to explain why this heritage is important for him, and to try not only to know the point of view, but to understand, like translation. When you translate, I try to speak in English, so when you translate an English in another one, you know that it's not word by word. You need to understand the culture of each other to have the capacity to discuss. So why we try to find methodology about mutual understanding. So it's the second aspect for us is very important. The third one is about rehumanizing, to take care about, to respect the dignity of the person, to very be aware of, to also to take in consideration minorities, to take in consideration human rights. So for us it's very important, this process. So it's the same, we work on this topic. And the last one, we say reframe. We are not going to choose one narrative in priority. Like, for example, here, if it's middle age, if it's the mental health, we have a new common narrative for the community, but a new narrative linked to challenge of today. I can say, for example, in the North District of Marseille, now the new narrative is more about the relationship between nature and culture. So it's what we say, we reframe, and we find a new narrative for the community. So it's what we have. It seems maybe to be theoretical, but it puts some input. So how we work concretely. Maybe if I will share with you my experience with Marseille. So we have what we call Faro Convention Action. We were 2 days ago in Lithuania, and they create an heritage opera. It's a way they deal to make the community, to work on the narrative. Now they have a very strong civil society fighting to defend their neighborhood against gentrification, speculation. But the beginning was to make this opera. So I will share my experience. So I don't know if you know Marseille, you go there. And it's the North District of Marseille. It was the first picture you see, it was the colonial ports. So they were building the port, building the fabric, and building the social housing, and it's a very long part of the city. So it's a mix between social housing, fabric, old castle, villages, so it's not a city, it's very chaotic. If you look, this map is a map of protected heritage. We have a few protected heritage, but it's all because of the action of the civil society in the North District of Marseille. Because I take the map of the North District of Marseille touristic park, we are not on the map. So the map, point of interest of Marseille, you have the city center, you have the Calanque, the south of the city. The north part of the city is not on the map, and here you have the touristic map. So what it is important to see in Marseille, you see that there is nothing. It seems that there are no people, no story, no monuments in the North District of Marseille. It's not only at the touristic point of view, but when people are doing urban planning, they do what they want in our area, because they think that they can build a road, build a building, they don't take care about our history. So this is the context in our context. So we have the chance to have, for example, you see this woman in orange. She is a curator. She was a curator, and for 10 years she cooperated with the civil society to say what is important for you, and she worked on the history. She goes in the archives, she published books. She make like an experimentation with the Council of Europe for 10 years to take in consideration the point of view of the local of the inhabitants. So you have this kind of map, and if you look, for example, you have a very simple fabric. It has no architectural value. But it was a place for the wedding of the Italian community. So it was very important for them because there was a big place, they have the capacity to organize the party. So this today is a common heritage, but because of the local community. So the map began to be more and more with different elements. The mayor, because we have a mayor of the city, but we have mayor for each arrondissement. I don't look at the... So they adopt the Faro Convention, because the difference with you in France, the states doesn't ratify the Faro Convention, and it will not ratify the Faro Convention. We are in a very centralized state, and it's complicated. But at the local level, the mayor adopts the principle, and our state, we are going to involve the civil society, the artists, the enterprise in our action. and they organize a heritage committee, and when they decide for urbanization, for touristic, for cultural decision, they consult the civil society. I will talk about the civil society. We create a cooperative of inhabitants. So when I say a cooperative inhabitant, the inhabitant has the majority inside this cooperative. And Marseille was 10 years ago European Capital of Culture. And we decided that we are going to invite people to come in the North District of Marseille and to discover all the story, all the people. So it was like Hôtel du Nord, it's the name of a movie, but the idea, we developed a network, as you see here, of bed and breakfast. Now we have 60 rooms, so you can come and sleep in the North District of Marseille. We publish different books like this. Now we publish 20 books. It's the story of Marseille by the North, written by curator, inhabitant, artists, so different story. We also offer hospitality to artists, and we publish postcards, but not the traditional one. For example, this is the story of the destruction of social housing in the North District of Marseille. This is the workers' garden, so they are very different, but each. But you can also, in our cooperative, we have also the last fabric of soap. We have different local producers. When you go to sleep in one of our room, you will find those products, but each product is the occasion to share our stories. We have a catalogue now today, after 12 years, of 100 heritage works about different history of the North District of Marseille. We also publish books, we organize different work, we organize stay. And as you see here, in reality, it's a map of the North District of Marseille, but now we have put on the map, it's not wide, there is a lot of story, history, people, places, and the motto of the Faro Convention Network is people, places, and stories. So it's how we develop this network. 2 years ago, the municipality changed in Marseille, and now maybe they will publish a new map of Marseille with the North District of Marseille. So for us, we wait 12 years, but now we have this opportunity to have a more strong cooperation with the municipality, and they take in consideration. And we are working since 10 years on a river, and the project was to build a road on the river. Now this river became a green line from the North District of Marseille to the city center. So they are taking in consideration what we are doing. Thank you. So I make it shortly. And Ivana will present more deeply a concrete initiative.
Can I sit here because of the... Dobar dan svima. Ja ću pričati na srpsko-hrvatskom jeziku koji svi ovdje razumemo, osim Prospera. Nije još naučio, ali uskoro će i on. Pa prvo, jako mi je drago što sam ovdje i nekako srce mi je puno zato što dolazim iz Novog Sada i od pre 4 godine zapravo živim u Beču, ali nekako sam vezana za Novi Sad i odlazim i dalje tamo i stvarno ovako sad ta veza između Novog Sada, Vojvodine i Slovenije je uvek bila nekako jaka i sa ljudima iz Novog Sada kad pričam uvek spominju ta punk rock muzika, kako smo išli, kako Ljubljana, Novi Sad su bili centri subkulture i tog pokreta mladih i tako dalje, tako da mi je ovo iz nekog ličnog razloga drago. A druga stvar isto vezano za Faro, ta inicijativa koju pokreću pojedinci u društvu. I sada sve više vidim da je to zapravo jedini način kako možemo da menjamo stvari. To je opet moj neki lični utisak. Ja sam bila aktivna u Novom Sadu u nekoliko inicijativa, aktivista civilnog društva i baš pre 10 godina bili smo inspirisani Metelkovom i demilitarizacijom društva, pa smo mi nešto u Novom Sadu radili vezano za društveni centar, za ulazak u kasarnu i tako dalje. Druga moja inicijativa gdje sam bila aktivna je udruženje scenatorija koja se bavila aktiviranjem kulturnog nasleđa koje je zaštićeno zakonom, Petrovaradinska tvrđava, ali ne brine se, zapravo država je zaštitila i ništa se tu ne dešava. I mi smo htjeli da ambientalnim teatrom, performansima oživimo to zaboravljeno nasleđe, koje čak prolazimo svaki dan pored njega, ali nikad nismo svesni da je to tu jer je tako zapušteno i raspada se. I to je doprinelo da danas zapravo to podgrađe je potpuno rekonstruisano, zaštićeno i taj prostor gde smo mi pravili gerila performanse sada stvarno je jedan reprezentativan prostor. No, ono što ću vam ja sada predstaviti je zapravo treća inicijativa gde sam bila aktivna i to je organizacija koja je sada član Faro mreže, zove se Udruženje Almašani i to je udruženje koje je zapravo nastalo tako što su ljudi iz ovog dela grada, vidite što piše Podbara, gde su ulice tako malo krive i nepravilne. Ovo dole je centar grada, Novog Sada. Poznajete li neko bio u Novom Sadu od vas? Manje više. Znači, ovaj dole deo je onaj klasičan centar gde je crkva, spomenik i to sve, a ovo iza, zapravo gde retko ko ode, to je taj almaški kraj koji je deo Podbare, jednog istog dela grada. I sad taj deo grada je mnogo stariji od ovog centra, koji je kraj 19. početak 20. veka, a ovaj deo je iz sredine 18. veka. Tu se cijelo jedno selo iz Vojvodine preselilo u taj selo Almaš, u taj deo grada koji se zove Almaški kraj. Međutim, on je nekako stalno onako u nekom kao zapećku, u nekom ulice nisu osvetljene, ideš pa se spotakneš, tu je smeće, tu je nešto, ali kvalitet kuća koji je tamo stvarno, postoji taj neki ambientalni kvalitet celog prostora zbog koga je on vredan. I sada predstavit ću vam priču tog udruženja Almašani kojima sam ja sarađivala dok sam bila u Novom Sadu. 2005. godine je napravljen plan urbanistički koji je predvideo zapravo da put bude probijen kroz Almaški kraj. Jer urbanisti, znate sad, nemojte se uvrediti ako je neko ovdje iz urbanizma, oni često gledaju praktične samo stvari i sad ćemo da premostimo jer taj put stvarno bi rasteretio centar, ali bi išao kroz samo jezgro tog starog grada. I onda su se stanari, njih prvo krenulo od 2, 3, skupili, pa ne možemo ovo dozvoliti. I krenuli su zapravo da sarađuju i da se povezuju sa arhitektama, sa pravnicima, prosto da se taj proces zaustavi. I zapravo oni su uspeli. I to je presedan da je jedna organizacija civilnog društva, svega sa par ljudi, zaustavila tako veliki gradski projekat koji je praktično već bio pred izvedbom. I to se desilo 2005. godine. Nakon toga, u tom periodu, su se Almašani aktivirali na povezivanju sa univerzitetima, sa pojedincima, vodili su šetnje kroz nasleđe, mi u Faro Konvenciji da kažemo heritage walks, ali to su šetnje kroz nasleđe. I nekako su pokušavali da senzibilišu ljude i stanovnike tog dela grada i ostale stanovnike da je to nešto što je vredno. I to su radili, publikovali su isto neke publikacije, organizovali susrete, znači radili su na tome. Međutim, kada je došlo do do velike promene, kada su svi zapravo reflektori postali upereni u Almaški kraj, je kada je Novi Sad kandidovan za Evropsku prestonicu kulture. To se desilo 2016. godine, u stvari osvojena je titula koja je trebala da se realizuje 2021. bila je 2022. zbog korone. Tako da tada je nekako svetlo počelo da se baca na Almaški kraj i ja sam se tu zadesila kao organizacija Evropske prestonice kulture, su me zvali da se uključim i da radim nešto vezano za nasleđe i za te šetnje kroz nasleđe i meni je odmah bilo, pa da, Almaški kraj, tu već postoji udruženje koje je aktivno, tu ćemo da radimo. I to je krenulo zaista, meni je ideja, šta mi je bila ideja? Ideja mi je bila da što više se prikupi priča, sećanja vezana za taj kraj, da se taj prostor otvori, da se stvori neka slika, da to nije neki tamo mračan deo grada u koji ne idemo, nego da je to jedno mesto poetično i mesto je zapravo vrlo važno što tu živeli puno pesnika, umetnika je tu živelo, zato što je tu bilo je dosta su povoljne bile kuće, nekako bio je onako baš kao neki boemski deo grada. I ideja mi je bila znači, da skupim priče i da se stvori ta neki širi front ljudi koji će biti svesni vrednosti tog kraja. I u prvoj fazi sam zajedno, prvo je bila istraživačka faza, skupljala sam priče od stručnjaka, od ljudi istoričara, etnologa, kustosa, zaštitara, arhitekata, o vrednostima stvarno tog nasleđa, znači to ono što je faktički. Druga faza je bio razgovor odnosno prikupljanje priča od ljudi koji rade u tom kraju, koji su odabrali almaški kraj da stvaraju tamo ili koji prosto su osposobili neke prostore pa se bavili ugostiteljstvom ili su umetnici ili tamo deluju. I treća grupa su bili stanovnici, šta je za njih važno u tom kraju. I zapravo rezultat tih mojih prikupljanja podataka, istraživanja, ja sam došla do toga da su dvorišta, sve tri grupe su istakli dvorišta almaškog kraja kao mesto, kao prostore koji su u stvari po čemu je taj kraj prepoznatljiv. Dvorišta prvo, pošto te kuće vidite kako izgledaju, te kuće su nekako kao seoske kuće, ali to je sam centar grada i čim vi odete 2 minuta dalje, naići ćete na velike zgrade, na te kao neoklasicističke zgrade, a ovde je totalno baš kao selo. I onda dvorišta prvo su bila dvorišta stanara gde su oni gajili povrće, cveće, tu je bilo njihova privatna zona, a nakon Drugog svetskog rata, kada su te kuće zapravo dodeljene, više porodica je u njima živelo i dan danas žive, to se zove horizontalni soliteri, zapravo više stanova u tim kućama je, onda su ta dvorišta služila zapravo kao neki polujavni prostor gde su se te komšije sretale i družile ili svađale ili šta se već dešava u dvorištima. Tako da se to pojavilo kao nešto što je jako interesantno. Dalje aktivnosti koje su usledile, ideja mi je bila da napravimo da se povežemo zapravo sa sličnim inicijativama i sa pripadnicima Faro mreže, jer smo im isto tada bili u tom momentu smo i otkrili Faro mrežu i bili smo kao, pa to je to što mi radimo, hajde da se povežemo, hajde da napravimo da se povežemo s ljudima koji se bave sličnim stvarima. I tu je bilo organizovano u jednom od privatnih dvorišta divan, kao razgovor na temu baš šetnje kroz nasleđe i tu je pripadnica udruženja Almašan i Violeta, Virginie Lombard iz Hotel du Nord, koja nam je prenosila svoje iskustva o šetnjama kroz nasleđe, koleginica iz scenatorije i isto jedna koleginica heritolog iz Beograda koja se bavi baš tim živim nasleđem i pričama. Tako da i ovaj događaj je bio onako prvi put da su se dvorišta otvorila i za građane Novog Sada i za građane tog dela grada i stvarno je bilo posjećeno i bilo je jako dobro. Treća faza, odnosno sledeća faza nakon tog divana, a sve u funkciji otvaranja dvorišta, je bila jedna akcija koja se zvala Otvaranje dvorišta almaškog kraja. To je bilo u septembru 2018. godine i 3 dvorišta su otvorena na kojima su bile različite aktivnosti. U jednom dvorištu je bila pozorišna predstava, to je dvorište gde i ranije su se dešavale pozorišne predstave. U jednom dvorištu smo prikupljali fotografije, stare fotografije, stare priče od ljudi iz tog kraja i skenirali smo ih na licu mesta i snimali njihove priče sa idejom da to pohranimo u digitalnu bazu i da bude dostupno svima. U jednom dvorištu je bio tamburaški orkestar, zato što taj kraj isto baštini tamburašku tradiciju, tamburaši znate šta su. Da, tamburašku tradiciju Novog Sada i tog dela grada, Milan Nešić, čuveni kompozitor, tako da smo u jednom dvorištu napravili ovaj događaj I u trećem dvorištu je bila, gde žive umetnici, jedna balerina i jedna cirkuska umetnica žive u jednom dvorištu. Oni su napravili performans vezano za cirkus i ovo smo isto snimili priču jednog stanovnika, starog stanovnika te kuće koji je pričao o tome kako je almaški kraj bio u njegovo vreme, pa smo mi to, jedan umetnik je napravio animirani film uz naraciju tog čoveka, tog pravog stanovnika, starog stanovnika almaškog kraja. Tako da ideja je bila da se kroz te sadržaje zapravo malo aktiviraju ta dvorišta, da se stvori neka imaginacija kako može ovaj kraj da izgleda, da se poveže, da se kultura bude zapravo neko lepilo, nešto što će uvezati sve ljude, ne samo tog dela grada, nego i celog Novog Sada. Ja sam otišla iz Novog Sada 2019. godine, Violeta, moja koleginica, je nastavila da radi, da deluje u almaškom kraju i sada ovo je, almaški kraj takođe je bio i industrijski deo Novog Sada, fabrika svile ili svilara je bila, čak postoji tradicija još iz kraja 19. veka, početak 20. veka, tu su bile razne transformacije, ali to je sad posebna priča o svili koja mogu pričati sat vremena, ali ovako je izgledala svilara do 2018. godine, početka 2019. godine. Znači, i uvek nam je bio neki, kad šetam almaškim krajem, ima neke lepote i u toj patini, u tom lepoti, kako da kažemo, ruina, ali uvek nam, tako kad smo šetali, što bi bilo lepo da to bude obnovljeno, što bi bilo lepo da to tako smo maštali i udruženja almaštali, stalno smo mislili o tome. Međutim, kada je prestonica kulture u procesu priprema, zaista almaški kraj je dobio na značaju i ti akteri iz udruženja Almašani su se povezali sa članom gradskog veća, znači kroz to povezivanje koje je trajalo godinama, sa institucijama, sa univerzitetima, zapravo su se povezali i sa članom gradskog veća za kulturu i zapravo do gradonačelnika je došla ta ideja, znači taj nekako tolika strast i želja da se obnovi taj ceo deo grada i svilara. Tako da svilara je obnovljena 2019. godine, sada je to jedna od kulturnih stanica u Novom Sadu i jako dobro funkcioniše, jako je dobro urađen projekat rekonstrukcije. Ono što je isto interesantno, da je od prošle godine almaški kraj zaštićen kao ambijentalna celina, ambijentalna prostorna celina u kojoj se nalazi svilara. Od prošle godine takođe je počela rekonstrukcija parternog uređenja, ili parterno uređenje, se tako kaže, rekonstrukcija ulica i tih elemenata koji su u javnom prostoru, osvetljenja, uređenje tabli na kućama gde su živjeli poznati ljudi, tako da to je veliki projekat koji je finansiran čak od strane pokrajine i grada. Znači, skroz je došlo do nivoa pokrajinskog, znači od lokalnog, vrlo prvo jedna, dve, tri osobe, povezivanje univerziteti, arhiv grada, muzej grada, Zavod za zaštitu spomenika kulture Novog Sada, član gradskog veća za kulturu, gradonačelnik, pokrajina i sad je to onako baš jedan jak i odlično finansiran projekat i sad je samo, što nam je sledeći zadatak je da vidimo kako da ne dođe do prevelikog rasta cena nekretnina i znate sve što dalje ide kada se jedan deo grada obnovi, ali u svakom slučaju ovo je jedan pozitivan primer umrežavanja aktera na lokalu i umrežavanja, naravno Almašani su članovi Faro mreže, tako da postoji puno saradnje i sa tim grupacijama, razmene iskustava, isteklo, my time is on. Umrežavanja i ono što i Prosper i ja smo baš pričali što je zapravo, mi fascinirani smo stvarno ovim prostorom i ovim šta je sve urađeno sa toliko malo ljudi zapravo koji su pokrenuli, ovo je nešto toliko vredno i toliko dragoceno, ali zapravo ne može dugo da ostane, neće moći dugo da ostane na ovom nivou i podrška od viših nivoa i umrežavanja je sledeći korak kako mi nekako to sad vidimo. Toliko od mene, slobodno pitajte šta želite, tu smo, nismo hteli dugo da sad prezentujemo, da vas ugušimo, ali mislimo da zapravo da je važno da vam kažemo niste sami, i svi su imali slične probleme i to je nešto što je deo procesa.
May I start and continue on English?
Yeah.
È possibile?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
It was very interesting what you described, what you talked about. You started with human rights, and your colleague finished with cultural heritage in Novi Sad. What is the connection? So, if I understand under culture, the cultural production, early music, jazz music, if I understand under culture also cultural heritage and cultural tourism. So this is one word, culture. Is the access to culture a part of human rights? My question.
Human rights is the right to participate to culture. So
access to culture.
To participate is not only to have access.
I would also see it as it's not only about culture and human rights, it's also about the community.
Yeah.
And the culture was in the 19th century, it was kidnapped from the community and nationalized into the national cultures and so on. And I think what you were saying and what we are doing is also here is reappropriating something that might be gone or something that is invisible or difficult to present as something as a high culture or it's not Michelangelo, it's some crazy people here.
We don't want just to have access to culture. We want to participate. The subtitle of Hotel du Nord is Fabric of History, to the designation what its heritage, to the interpretation, to the valorization. So we want also to be part of the process of it. Sometimes, as I say, it could be for us very important, an old fabric with no architectural value, but for the community it's very important to share its history and value. So, but also we want to participate, we cooperate for a museum, for example, in Marseille. We want not just to participate, we want to be from all the process, from the beginning, what we are going to tell, what the story. So it's, for us, it's not only access, it's the right to cooperate. We prefer to
But is this a human right or not?
No, it's a human right. So human rights, as I say, clearly is the right to participate to culture. And the Faro Convention is under the umbrella of this human right. But what it is interesting that human rights are all linked together. So you can, if you think about this human right, you have also to respect the dignity of all the people. It's helped also to manage to deal with dissonant heritage. For example, when I worked with in Forlì in Italy, we were dealing with fascist heritage. If we work on it, we work on it for the application of human rights. So for us, it was very important that it's part of all the human rights. It's not that much that nostalgia about the fascism, we can share its narrative. No, we share it if it helps us to implement the human rights. So for us, this umbrella is very important when you deal with, as you, with the dissonant heritage. But it's not only human rights, it's also democracy and rule of law. A space to have discussion and to create the good discussion for the good condition of the discussion. So it's the three are very important: democracy, rule of law, and human rights.
That's very good. What exactly means Faro? This abbreviation?
It's the name of the city where the convention was adopted in Portugal.
Yes.
We say Faro Convention because the real name is the Framework Convention on the Value of Cultural Heritage for Society. Faro Convention is more shorter.
Yeah, when we start talking about the full name, then people are they fall asleep. So if I can add something also, like it's not just access for people to consume a culture, it's one part of accessibility, but this is also the right of people to determine what culture is and what heritage is to them.
Yes, but it is also a problem how to stimulate. Yeah. If you take the case of Cmurek, of Tratah, and the connection with the municipality, which is voted, so they are representative of people, and they should be they should follow to this what people need. And if you observe the connection with the state, so it's like something on the margin. So Cmurek is not possible, not important for Slovenian culture. This is the main idea. So please don't make troubles. How to stimulate these connections? So the responsibility of municipality to cultural activities, the responsibility of Ministry of Culture and the state to activities here at Cmurek. What are the methods? What are the possibilities? How you can make pressure to people which should be responsible, but they are not?
Yes. Yes, this is usually the case, and with the example that I showed and with Prosper said, they were not even on the map of Marseille, but for visitors. Almaški kraj, the government, they said, we will just cut the roads, so we would assume that people in the government would have this sensitivity, but they don't have. So those are the ways Almaški kraj could have been lost if just few people didn't gather. So also the pressure, you can maybe explain for Marseille, but this starts with this like bottom up, and it spreads really, first it's difficult to gather, to mobilize people, but this is the only way. You start and then it's hard and then you think, why am I doing this? This will not work. But connecting, and then when the network is so strong, then the people there will,
It's also that the Faro Convention is useful for us, I can say, as activists, because it said we are not against the institution, we are not against the political player, but we have parts. We act in the framework of. We are also acting for public interest. So we want to cooperate, and the heritage could be also a resource. It was for us the idea that it's also common. It's very important that if we cooperate together, we can find maybe another way of development. And it was the case in Marseille, because at the beginning the project was very speculation, and also we deal with them to say that maybe there are other way of development, taking care about the quality of life, but also economical interest. So it was, I said, democracy is also important. It's to open a space of discussion, and not to only that a group of interests of the ministry decide of the future, for example, of this castle. We want to discuss it and to find a cooperation, a new way. But at the end, it's also that the public institution understand that the civil society is a resource, it's not a problem. And generally, when they think about heritage, it's a cost, and civil society is a problem. So we try to change the perception to say the institution is a resource for the civil society, and civil society is a resource for the institution. And if we cooperate, we will find a solution. As I say, it's why the last I present the theoretical approach, but as I say, we reframe the narrative. We try to find another narrative, not to choose only the one of the institution or the one of the different group of interests. We need to find a new narrative, and human rights are very useful for this. It can be linked to climate change. No, it can be linked to a common challenge we have. And today, for example, climate change is very important, and sometimes it helps you to. But it's not easy. As I say, we take in Marseille since 25 years that we are dealing with this, and sometimes we cooperate, sometimes we are in conflict. And
well, it's interesting because we talk so much about democracy and human rights, and everything is clear, everything is easy. But I have a project, and we have problems with funding by the municipalities and by the state. And when I discussed, it was one old, he worked at Ministry of Culture for 30 years, now he's retired, and he said to me 2 years ago, most of the people are supporting you, but not on the top. So decision makers, they are like something extra. If they don't understand, they do not move. And then you can have democracy, we can have democracy in the words, everybody agrees to have democracy and human rights, but in the practice, it doesn't work. I think the same problem is here at Cmurek.
The same problem is everywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we know that we are in an economical crisis.
How to move this?
But it's why for us we want to act, we want strong institutions, we want a good democracy, but we have to be part of we are part of the solution, so it's why we are not only waiting that the state change or the political period change, we are part of the solution. For us,
because we have now very good Minister of Culture.
But I'm not
very active.
No, we are not cooperating with the municipality, but we try to find a way. But the opposite, for example, is in our district of Marseille. The people stop to trust the institution. They stop to go to vote. They are no. It's a very depressive approach. So we try also to say together we can be stronger and we can maybe be part of the solution. But we are not only the solution. But like you are academics involved in your project. I imagine people in the institution say, together we find a way to cooperate and to try to contribute to solve the solution, but it's not easy. As I say, we are not the best practice.
Thank you, gentlemen. Is there any other question or comment? Yeah?
If you want, I can say something.
Yeah, sure.
About this discussion on human rights. Community and being part of the community is not, as I remember, explicitly part of the list of the human rights. But in the Convention for the Rights of People with Disability, this is a very important right, yes, because they have been excluded from community. So I think, and what you were saying, I think this is also one part of the message, because we are all losing the community, so to speak. Yes, we are in terms of tennis, we are moving more to the Gesellschaft and losing the Gemeinschaft. And so I think in this process, the right of being in the community, which is very much so also a cultural right, yes? Because it is the question of identity, it's the question of doing things together with other people, joining, creating some joint values which can be different to the dominant values and so on. So I think this for me, one of the lessons of today is that this is an important human right, which was self-understood in 100 years ago, but now it isn't. Yes, now we crave for the community, not only for ice cream.
Thank you. Yes, I think that the right to be part of the community is a human right. It's not the right wording, what I said, but it's even written on our wall outside, because it says somehow that only being part of the community. Ja, sedaj niso biti del skupnosti, ker samo skozi skupnost tudi nekako se uresničiš in pa imaš tudi odgovornost od te skupnosti. So it's a right to be part of community and a responsibility for the community in which you are.
To be part and not to be part.
Yeah.
It's free, you can be part, you can, so it's not.
If I may, one short question.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, do you have any experience with more rural examples? Because you're members of the Faro network. So you're both your examples are from the cities, but here our situation is maybe much more complex because there are not so many inhabitants here, and maybe they're not so much related to this castle because they don't have much interactions.
If you want to answer not in English, go.
So yeah, maybe if there is any...
In English or in what would be the better for you?
What you prefer. I don't know if
because we talk about Romania, for example.
Auf Deutsch, ja?
Ja, wir können auch Deutsch.
Wir leben in Wien und...
Ja, na srpskom. Pa da, postoji jedna članica Faro mreže, je zajednica, u stvari Mihaj Eminescu Trust.
Il y a Castillon aussi avec en fait.
You can say Castillon. Okay. Selo Viskri u Transilvaniji, koja je pod opštinom Bunešti, to je ruralna zajednica, ja kažem 600 inhabitants, 600 stanovnika, jer se doseljavaju stalno, ali šta je bila poenta, šta je bio izazov u tom selu? Selo postoji crkva, saksonska crkva iz 12. veka i selo koje je zapravo nastajalo oko te crkve. Saksonci su se vremenom asimilovali sa Rumunima, a od 1991. godine sa promenom režima i svega što se dešavalo, oni su se iselili najviše u Nemačku. Tako da je ostalo puno praznih seoskih kuća, vrlo tradicionalna, vrlo kvalitetno kulturno nasleđe, ali prazno. I ostale su rumunske porodice, 6 saksonskih porodica i ostalo je bilo Romi. Znači Romi su većina u tom selu koja je ostala. I zapravo Mihaj Eminescu Trust je fondacija, it's a foundation, koja je, Caroline Fernoland je predsjednica te fondacije i članica isto Faro mreže. Oni su rekli, hajde da vidimo šta možemo da uradimo sa tim kućama koje su ostale prazne i zvali su stručnjake, arhitekte, konzervatore, razne ljude da im pomognu kako da obnove sa tradicionalnim metodama to nasleđe. Znači, oni su bukvalno učili kako da prave cigle od blata, kako da zidaju i te romske porodice su se uselile u nekadašnje saksonske kuće. Tako da što Karolin kaže, i meni je to uvek fascinantno, kvalitet moje zajednice je, i ono što daje život zajednici je korišćenje nasleđa, a ne vezivanje za ono čije je nasleđe bilo, nego kako mi to nasleđe koristimo sada za potrebe sadašnjeg stanovništva. Znači, ako idemo po onom zvaničnom, to je saksonsko selo, možemo ga zaštititi i pokazati da tu dolaze turisti da gledaju te saksonske kuće i šta ja znam, da se to stavi neki muzej, ali ne, ona je ljude koji su tamo, zajednički su obnovili to, ljudi tamo žive, selo je dominantno poljoprivredno. Čime se bave ljudi uglavnom ovde u selu? Šta je izvor?
Puno njih prije radilo je u Paloni, u tvornici. Sad puno njih radi u Austriji, u raznim tvornicama. I u Mariboru, ja mislim da poljoprivrede nema baš puno. Ima možda 2-3 one velike
proizvođača,
da, ali inače ljudi odlaze nekako na posao i vraća su.
Dobro, samo ovo mi je samo interesantno da nismo imali taj uvid, ali znači oni se bave poljoprivrednom u Viskriju i njihov opstanak zapravo je vezan za tu poljoprivredu. Oni su razvili i turizam u međuvremenu i to je stvarno, znači tamo sve što se sprema i što se nudi turistima je sve proizvedeno u Viskriju. Hrana, suveniri su isto lokalno proizvedeni i jako puno turista sve više i više dolazi i puno ljudi se doseljava u Viskri. Puno ljudi iz Bukurešta dolazi, kupuju kuće, ali šta je sad interesantno za Viskri? Da ne bi došlo do velikog, kako da se ne poremeti taj kvalitet života stanovnika u tom selu, oni su napravili društveni ugovor, social contract, I'm talking about that, kojim zapravo onim omogućava da zajedno definišu viziju, da zajedno definišu, bukvalno oni idu do najsitnijih detalja da se regulišu cene smeštaja, da ne bude sad neko dođe, pa ne znam, naplaćuje preko ili neko da spusti cenu, znači da cene budu ujednačene. Do toga, recimo, kako kuće u koje boje mogu da budu ofarbane, da ne dođe sad neko, pa sad moja kuća bude roza, tamo zna se kako. Znači, to su do najsitnijih detalja i taj ugovor što je kvalitet je da on se stalno se menja, znači postoji ta inicijalna verzija, ali stalno se dopunjava, menja u skladu sa kako se menjaju izazovi u zajednici. Tako da oni sad imaju drugi problem jer imaju previše turista U međuvremenu selo je pobudilo interesovanje i kod odnosno sad kralja Charlesa i on je obišao, ne znam kada je prvi put bio kralj Charles tamo, ali uglavnom je on se jako zainteresovao i kupio jednu od tih kuća i sada dolazi puno ljudi da vidi to selo i da vide kuću kralja Charlesa i mislim što to je jedna obična, najobičnija kuća tamo koja nije ništa to sad ni spektakularno, tako da dolazi puno ljudi i sad oni imaju te izazove kako da smeste te ljude, kako da malo obuzdaju tu najezdu turizma, tako da to je opet, znači ne postoji nikakva receptura koju mi sad možemo primeniti, ali postoje, znači vi ćete možda izvući neki benefit iz neke urbane sredine, način kako su se ljudi mobilisali, ali opet iz neke možda ruralne, znači postoje razni primeri, ali evo ovo je jedan primer urbane zajednice. Postoji i Castellón or San Millán.
Castellón. I will give another example because we have also San Millán, we're also in Georgia, another example. But San Millán is interesting because it's the member of the Faro Convention Network is a university. It's the University of Castellón, and when they create the university, all the young from the different village come to the university. And generally, they never come back to the village. So the university, like as debt with the village, has decided to develop public services to the villages to say if you have project on cultural heritage, we have skill on history, sociology, anthropology, economics, and we can cooperate with you to valorize your cultural heritage. But we are not going to choose which cultural heritage, so they use the Faro Convention as a framework, and today they work with 25 different villages with different projects on different heritage, cultural, industrial, natural heritage, and with different approach. So it's another example, like it's a university, we offer, we can say, public services to the inhabitants of different village to work on their cultural heritage with some projects, artistic project, economical project, cultural projects, so they are very different. And it's also a member of the Faro Convention Network. So we share with them the different opportunity of applying the Faro Convention. But we can say it's half in our networks. We have, like us, we are both coming from more urban area, but we have a lot of initiative more in the rural area. Mm-hmm. But the problematic generally are different, but a lot of common. So the relationship between the municipality and the civil society is the same in the village or in the big city like Marseille.
Mm-hmm. And this is good now when you were talking like this Castellón, the university and around the villages. Mm-hmm. It also could be like inspiration for here you have Cmurek and other villages around, and this as a center for some kind of where they can present whatever. I'm just, it also could be some kind of model, but of course, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, then